Salutations, everyone. Good evening. Took us a little longer to get set up than I would normally like, but I believe we are now good to go. Well, if this is your first time watching it, I would like to introduce you to what I would like to be a weekly or at least maybe bi weekly event where I'll get to comment a little bit on the games that are going to be happening at my LGS here in Brazil. And this is going to be our starting match. So we are going to have João Gomes on the top of your screen playing White Winnie and Felipe dos Santos playing Walls Combo on the bottom part. And we are actually starting with a match where Felipe has mulliganed to, I believe, 4 cards, because from what I saw before we had just started, he was sending 3 cards to the bottom of his library. And João has started with the full 7 cards in hand. And interestingly enough, I think this is a matchup that I haven't really seen a whole lot. I really enjoy the bird tokens that we get to see from the other side of the board, and that is what they are. The White Winnie player got the chance to cast a pair of Battle Screeches already, but considering that the ground seems thoroughly locked, I imagine that those birds are going to be the main source of damage here. And White Winnie, traditionally not a very interactive deck, but we can see a Thraben Charm in João Gomes' hand, so maybe that is going to be just enough for him to interact on a crucial combo turn, assuming that Felipe even gets to the combo itself. All right. So again, this is a situation where I do feel that walls would traditionally be favored because there is not going to be a whole lot of interaction coming from the White Winnie side. But on a mulligan to 4 and with a situation where a lot of their creatures are not going to be able to apply much pressure or any pressure, actually, I don't really know if the walls player is going to have enough just time and resources to be able to close out the game before they are aggroed out. We get to see 8 tokens on the other side of the board, which should probably be a 2-turn clock if there is any sort of remove or interaction involved. Yeah, and there is definitely, yeah, there we see the clock. The attack for 3 from the spider, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, is probably just going to be traded off with. I couldn't really see what that. Yeah, I don't think that was a trade at all because most of the creatures in the Walls combo deck are not gonna have power, as we are very well aware of. And crucially, Felipe is at 9 life here, not 8. So unless João can actually scrounge up an extra point of damage somewhere from his board, uh, Felipe should get a pair of turns here, which, as if you've ever played against Walls combo, can definitely be a killer. But there is no X-Bane Guardian in play currently, so maybe it is not going to be such a dangerous situation as we originally thought. Okay. Activates Quirion Ranger, untap Ceruli, tap Ceruli again, and that's just gonna be a cycle on a Generous Ant, it seems. Grab a Forest. Let's see if Felipe is playing the one-off Gingerbread Cabin that a lot of Walls players like to have, because it does give you quite a bit of life gain over the course of a longer game. Oh, I guess he wouldn't even be able to uh, do the gingerbread cabin trick, as he only has a pair of forests in play, not the 3 needed, plus the cabin for the food tokens to come out. And I imagine that this is a game that definitely is gonna be very different post sideboard, mostly because from the way things are looking, Felipe is likely gonna be on the play, which gives him a pretty big edge. And there's the X-Bane Guardian that we mentioned. So if there's nothing that João can do to remove this, it is possible for Felipe to untap and just be able to combo off. We, however, know that there is a Thraben Charm in hand, and with a total 10 creatures, that is going to be a lot of damage. And there's the secret door, which would be the payoff needed if there is a Freed from the Rio next turn. Spider-Man here not doing a whole lot, still as just a 3-power creature facing a bunch of O3s and O4s. Not quite enough power to punch through, but the birds should do the trick. Oh, okay. We see Felipe tapping the Overgrown Battlement for 6 mana, I believe. 5 mana. And then untapping it, being able to tap it again. Some mana floating. Let's see if there is a Generous Ant. Generous Ant obviously would be pretty good. Yeah. So that is enough mana to play the Generous Ant and crack the food token, gaining him 3 life, putting him up to 12. And 12 here, so that would be 8 points of a swing from the bird, 7 damage getting through, which would put him to 6. And that would still kill on the next turn, as things currently stand. Again, if you are just joining us now, this is the first round of our weekly LGS matches here at Jackpot Jogos in São Carlos, Brazil. And yeah, we see there that Felipe is cracking the food, putting him up to 12. And if you are just joining us now, I am very interested in making this a thing where I can do it at least once a week or at least every 2 weeks when I get the chance, because I do quite enjoy having the experience of hanging out with the people here and watching some games and seeing some new strategies. This is also a type of tournament that we have twice here in our local game shop. So uh, I won't be showing you all of them, as that would be quite a lot of work. But I am very interested in showing at least the ones that I can get to and the ones that I personally think are the more interesting ones. Today, from what I saw before the matches started, we have a wide variety of decks playing here, which is pretty good. And there might even be a couple spicy ones that we are probably going to get to over the course of the next 3 rounds. So I do believe there is a core Skyfisher in João Gomez's hand. There we see the Skyfisher just picking up the Inspector. And I would be shocked if he doesn't hold up his Thraben Charm. Yeah. So Felipe is going to take a draw. Let's see what it is. Plays another land drop. I believe we knew about that one from last turn after he cycled the Generous Ant. Okay, tapping the X-Bane Guardian. That is 6 mana now. No, 5 mana still. Generous Ant, very powerful, can definitely attack. It does not have Defender. You guys can probably hear some chatter coming from downstairs, as the players are wont to speak quite loudly in situations like this, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's the true LGS experience. Felipe able to play a Shield Wall Sentinel, which is essentially a tutor card. And yeah, there is the card that he definitely wanted. So Felipe would have been able to combo off here. You can grab the Drift of Phantasms, transmute it, grab the Freed from the Rio, enchant your X-Bane Guardian, and that is infinite mana. You would also need a outlet for your infinite mana, but Felipe definitely has the Secret Door already, which is quite good, as it is an outlet that you can just infinitely use to go through the dungeon and drain your opponent very slowly over the course of many clicks. If you're playing on Magic Online, in Pauper, you just explain what happens and your opponent dies. Well, we are actually going to see a Galvanic Alchemist, not a Freed from the Rio. Essentially the same thing here, except it's actually better, because as Felipe is going to cast it and try to make infinite mana, if it was a Freed from the Rio, he would just be completely blown out. And here it's a situation where that is not going to happen. He is still not going to be able to make infinite mana and kill his opponent, but he will be able to, at the very least, keep the creature. Yeah, there's going to be the Thraben Charm, I imagine. Yes. Thraben Charm targeting the X-Bane Guardian, very likely. Okay. So I believe João did that in response to the Soulbound trigger, because otherwise Felipe would be able to continue comboing off. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, so Ceruli Caretaker taps the Shield Wall Sentinel to make another mana. And just hard casts. Oh no, they are transmuting. Okay. So they already had another one. That's impressive. There's the Freed from the Rio. So Felipe is definitely just going for the kill here. Does he have enough mana? Oh, he does because of the Quirion Ranger. So he gets to untap the X-Bane Guardian to then try to keep going? Yeah. Yeah, so he's gonna get it. On a mulligan to 4 through a Thraben Charm and double, and then we see the handshake and double Battle Screech. Not good enough. Impressive. Felipe with a stellar comeback that match. 1-0 now. Very impressive on his part. Again, post sideboard, I don't have the exact deck lists from these two players, but I would imagine we can see a pair of flag bearers in Felipe's sideboard, which could be useful here as just lightning rods for removal. I would imagine if he has access to something like Dispel or Negate, those would be more interesting than... Oh, well, but at least, I mean, it is a creature, right? So that's fair. You can actually... I love how I am arguing with myself on this. But yes, it can be definitely better used. And we actually also see João Gomes is having the same thought with his flag bearers in the sideboard. There also seem to be some Journey to Nowheres. Extra removal is always very important in this matchup. And this is, again, just a matchup where you want to go fast and you need to have at the very least a single point of interaction before turn 4. Because Walls is definitely a deck that can combo off on turn 4 or 5 if not disrupted. And here we can see João Gomes taking out his Prismatic Strands. Not going to be the most useful this matchup. And by most useful, it does not have text. The Walls combo deck is not going to be attacking. At least it shouldn't really be. I imagine if you are being attacked by a bunch of Generous Ants, you are already way far behind. And doesn't really stop the combo either, because the combo is life loss. And again, even if it wasn't, the dungeon is a colorless effect, so Prismatic Strand doesn't really help against it. All right, players seem to be shuffling up for game number 2. João still a little uncertain about what he wants to do with his sideboard strategy, and honestly, I do not blame him. It is probably not an easy choice. I would imagine that whenever you expect to go to your LGS to play some games, you are not really thinking about Walls combo unless your LGS is absolutely overrun with it. Yeah, he's even showing the prismatic strands to Felipe, like, this doesn't do anything, doesn't have any text. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't. Probably the cards that he would like to have would be extra copies of Guardian's Pledge, if he's not already maxed out. But I did see that he is playing the Chocomog card in his White Weenie deck, and that is a pretty good addition. It is a card that you can drop on turn 3 to keep the pressure, and being a body itself, even if it's not as much of a immediate pump as Guardian's Pledge, being able to pump twice or even 3 times if you can disrupt the Walls player a little bit is very important here. All right. So João is actually going to be on the play, which is where he wants to be as the aggressive deck here. And we are off to game number 2. So let's see what João has in hand. I do seem to notice a pair of lands. There is a Thraben Charm. Oh, he's also playing... There is the Flag Bearer. I don't know if I... Yeah, I don't see any 1-drops, which is definitely a problem. But he is playing a free pump spell in the form of... I actually do not remember the name of the card, but you can, as long as you have a plains, you can tap a creature, a white creature, to give all of your creatures a +1/+1. All right. There's also a Chocomog. Yeah, and you are going to need to deploy creatures if you want your Thraben Charm to be live. So if I'm in João's place here, I think I am afraid of basically one thing. My hand has good cards when it comes to interacting. However, this is... Ah, okay, there is a Rafine's Informant there as well. I was going to mention that it would be really bad to have a lot of sideboard cards and no pressure because, again, you are the aggressor in this matchup. Felipe takes a draw, plays a Winding Way. Okay. Going to choose creature. And how many hits? The full 4. So we see a Valakut Invoker, Overgrown Battlement, Ceruli Caretaker, and the Drift of Phantasms. Valakut Invoker here, just an extra win condition after you have infinite mana, but also a win condition that you can just use. The Walls deck is fully capable of generating huge amounts of mana. So even if you're not able to infinitely combo, you are able to just burn your opponent 1 lightning bolt at a time by paying 8 mana. And I imagine Felipe is going to have to discard quite a few cards here because he kept a hand on 7, cast a Winding Way, and went up 3 cards because of it. So by my... Also being on the draw, so by my count, he should be at probably 10 cards in hand right now. I don't really know what else he discarded, but I imagine some of those cards are probably just going to hit or have already hit the graveyard pretty handily. Okay, João takes his draw, swings for 3. Felipe down to 17. Let's pay a pair of mana. There's our flag bearer. Also extremely good because of Quirion Ranger. Quirion Ranger being forced to target it is a big problem. Felipe takes his draw, plays a forest, plays a Ceruli. Also deploys an overgrown battlement. Okay, João taking his draw. There's a Journey to Nowhere. So even though no land, it is a decent addition to his hand. Without a removal spell this turn, the Overgrown Battlement is just going to completely lock the ground, so having the Journey there hit the Overgrown Battlement and at least open up the way for the Rafine's Informant to attack, very important, very good. Swing for 3 again. I imagine Felipe is gonna take it, and he does. Untaps, takes a draw. Let's see what Felipe is gonna want to do here. Having a clock is probably the most important thing. Just to lead the Stampede again. So I don't really know what he has in hand, but I am very interested in this play because I would imagine you want to deploy your creatures first and then maybe use the lead the Stampede to refuel. Waltz Combo is definitely a deck that needs a lot of creatures in play to set it up. But if you're just casting draw spells turn after turn, you're going to end up discarding quite a bit because you are just going, or not necessarily discard, I guess. You can just not take the cards with lead. But you can definitely come to a situation where you are passing up on picking up creatures just to maybe draw them later. That is definitely an interesting choice. Okay. Felipe is going to reveal some creatures. I didn't really get a good glimpse on which ones we are going to be seeing from him. But again, this is just a Ceruli Caretaker in the face of a 3-powered Rafine's Informant. And seems like João found his third land. Very important for him here. He has a lot of cards in hand that he would love to deploy. There's the Militia Bugler. That is a very good creature, especially because it's able to... Well, first, you get your third white creature, so you're able to flash back your Battle Screech. João Gomes here faced between the choice of taking another hate piece in the form of another flag bearer or a inspector. I would probably imagine you just want the inspector having Chocomog in hand. Yep. And he does take the inspector. I guess now the question becomes, do you want to hit for 3 or do you want to flash back the Battle Screech? I would probably be tempted to flash back the Battle Screech because with Chocomog that would represent 4 extra damage next turn. And then 4 extra damage every other turn after that, and seems like João agrees. Let's grab a couple scrap paper birds. Felipe going to be playing another Ceruli Caretaker. 2 mana left. And it is important to note here that the Ceruli tapping for mana here is not free. As a 3 toughness creature, they can definitely block either the Standard Bearer or the Militia Bugler. Crashing Drawbridge is a huge hit here. If you haven't seen this one before, this is a 2 mana 04 or 06, I don't quite remember, but it is a creature that it is a defender which you can tap to give all of your creatures haste until end of turn. So it is fully possible next turn for Felipe to just absolutely unleash his hand playing something like Overgrown Battlement, X-Bane Guardian, just absolutely exploding in mana. There's the Choco Mog. Yeah, and then we're gonna see an attack for everything here, which should be 6, 9, 13 damage total. 1 short of lethal, I believe. Ceruli going to be blocking the Standard Bearer. I would imagine Crashing Drawbridge probably blocking the Militia Bugler. And we're gonna see 7 damage coming through. Players seem to be doing some math. Never easy for you to block here. I also see that one of our other matches has already finished, so very likely that once this one is done, we are just going to be able to go straight into round 2, assuming there is a third game. And there we see the pump spell from João. Pump spell being able to cast for free by just tapping the Militia Bugler. And yes, both creatures are going to die. So 4 damage on the Crashing Drawbridge, 3 damage on the Ceruli. And Felipe is going to be left with pretty much nothing here. Without the Crashing Drawbridge, his explosiveness has been extremely reduced. And just being at 3 life is definitely going to cause Felipe to have a hard time. And seems like he packs it up. Yep. So we are going to a game 3, match tied. That's exciting. That was a very good draw from João Gomes. He definitely got a little luckier from his top decks, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. Trust in your deck that it is going to give you the extra lands and spells that you want. And I am actually going to go check the name of that card. That is a card that I have gotten punked by more than once. Ramosian Rally. 4 mana instant, but allows you to cast it for free if you control a plains and you can tap an untapped creature you control. +1/+1 to all your creatures until the end of turn. Pretty good. Definitely a card for Felipe to be on the lookout for. And this White Winnie list by João Gomes, I am actually enjoying it quite a bit. I don't know exactly about the numbers that he is using in his 75 because we are seeing a lot of different cards and cards that don't usually are played together. Decks normally don't have space to play Ramosan Rally and Chocomog and Guardian's Pledge, but seems to be working for him so far in this matchup. All right, game number 3. Felipe is going to be on the play. Seems like some very light sideboarding happened here. Players likely happy with their choices, and I would definitely agree. Seems like cards have been pretty helpful for both of them. More on the White Weenie side than on the Walls combo side, definitely, but... Okay, and João seems to be looking at a hand that once again has a Standard Bearer and a Thraben Charm. Probably a Ramosan Rally as well, I believe. Maybe a couple lands, and seems like he's keeping. Don't know if he has an early play. Without a Thraben Inspector or another 3-power creature on turn 2 in the form of a Rafin's Informant, might be a little hard to keep the pressure on against a deck like Walls. All right, Felipe seems to be taking a mulligan here. Walls combo is definitely a deck that mulligans decently well because it is just able to get extra cards back. Ooh, seems to be going down to 5 now. No lands in that hand. Let's take a look at a fresh 7, see how we do. All right, seems we got to keep now. I see 3 cards being separated, maybe to be sent back. Is that another mulligan to 4? Oh, it is another mulligan to 4. That's rough. Well, he did pull out a win in game number 1 on a mulligan to 4. Let's see if he can do it again. That's a forest and a passing of the turn. Don't forget that draw, João. Yes, good. Plays a land and a passing of the turn, and there seems to be a Rafin's Informant. Very important. But I imagine Overgrown Battlement's gonna have something to say about that. And yeah, another one of our matches has just finished as well. So we only have 2 more going. There is a turn 2 Standard Bearer coming down. Maybe in respect of something like the combo side of the deck. Winding Way, hitting Overgrown Battlement and a Quirion Ranger. Land drop. Is there going to be a Quirion Ranger to follow? 2 mana into just the other Overgrown Battlement. Sure. That seems fine. Facing a Standard Bearer with only a single point of power, I would imagine that Felipe is feeling pretty safe as of right now. There's the Thraben Inspector. Gonna be making a clue. Love the clue token. Scrap paper clue. And there's 2 mana for a core Skyfisher, bouncing the Thraben Inspector back. Skyfisher, importantly, a creature that can just go over the walls. Quirion Ranger. Ooh, that was just a Quirion Ranger and a pass. Felipe definitely feeling his mulligan to 4. Probably not going to have enough resources to keep going. So I would imagine he's definitely looking for a Winding Way or a Lead the Stampede. But again, not under tremendous pressure. If you are on the Walls combo side here, you are probably imagining that if your opponent had a start where they didn't play a 1-drop and then they just played a Standard Bearer on turn 2, you are likely expecting to see a lot of sideboard cards. There's Raffines. Raffines draws another Raffines. Do we have... no, we do not. I was going to say if we had a Battle Screech to discard, would have been a pretty good hit here, but doesn't seem like it, just discarding another Standard Bearer. And if you are playing against Walks combo, the first Standard Bearer is a lot of the time just good enough. You don't really need multiples. 2 mana for a Thraben Charm on the Quirion Ranger. An interesting choice there. I think if I was playing, I would be very tempted to hit one of the Overgrown Battlements just to try and push more damage through next turn. But I do believe that there is also some value in just going after diversity. So if there is already a pair of Overgrown Battlements, we can try to hit the card that is different. João Gomes here, deciding what he wants to discard. Seems to have played another Raffines. Discarding the Militia Bugler. Interesting choice. Puts a counter there. And if you are thinking, why do these things before you attack? Remember that this is a deck that has free pump spells, so there is always some value in trying to get a pump spell in your hand before your opponent decides on their blocks, so you're able to maybe blow them out, like João did in game number 2. Another 2 mana for another Raffine's Informant. So João Gomes definitely seems to be setting up a wide board to try and go for a kill next turn off of a Chocomog. Chocomog, importantly, pumping all those Raffines into the 4-power territory, guaranteeing that Overgrown Battlement cannot block freely. Okay, that Raffine that time just discarded a Plains, meaning it does not get pumped into 3 power. And that's just another hit for 2, bringing Felipe down to 16. Yeah, João probably explaining that it doesn't get a counter since he discarded a land with it. And Felipe on his turn, casting a Winding Way, able to hit a Standard Bearer and an X-Bane Guardian. Standard Bearer having an interesting interaction here where if you have your own, you can target your Standard Bearer with your abilities. But again, that's not really a thing that the Walls combo player wants to be doing necessarily. I guess at least that is acting like the lightning rod. So if João Gomes were to have another piece of interaction, he would be forced to target the Standard Bearer with it. And there we see the Chocomog and immediately plays the 3-bit Inspector and goes to attacks. Alright, so Chocomog gets its counter, all of the creatures get +1 power. Time to swing. And importantly, Felipe is tapped pretty low. There's a single Overgrown Battlement up, able to block, and his own copy of Standard Bearer. That might not be good enough. And I can confirm that this is our last match, so as soon as this one ends, we will be going straight into the next one. Alright, Overgrown Battlement blocks one of the Raffines. And I believe there is 11 damage coming through. Correct. So Felipe down to 5. It is possible for João to die here. If Felipe has all the pieces, it seems like he has no more interaction. I mean, oh, and I see a Drift of Phantasms. However, there is still the Standard Bearer on the other side. Oh, and it sees... oh, that's very sad. Drift of Phantasm seems to be the last card in hand. So if you are not familiar with this, the way the Walls combo player would normally do things here is you would transmute Drift of Phantasms for a Reaping the Graves. You would cast some other spell, which would allow you to cast Reaping the Graves with Storm, getting the Drift of Phantasms back again, which you would do again to grab another Reaping the Graves, which increases your Storm, and then you're able to eventually get both of your Drift of Phantasms back and get the pieces to win the game. However, by just having a single card and no other piece of interaction, he might just need to Drift of Phantasms for Lead the Stampede. I am not super sure about what Felipe can do here, but I would imagine Lead the Stampede is probably his best choice. Yep, and he agrees. There's the lead. Okay, and Lead the Stampede here. Going to be getting the Drift of Phantasms. I missed what the other cards were, but having one Drift of Phantasms at the very least means that maybe now Reaping the Graves is on. He does have quite a bit of green mana that he can generate off of those overgrown battlements, but the Ceruli means that likely there is only one blue mana until that creature can get untapped. And there's the transmute for the Galvanic Alchemist. And we see Felipe reading his own card to make sure this works. Okay, so maybe not transmute for the Galvanic Alchemist just yet. Okay, we do get the Galvanic Alchemist here. So he should have infinite mana. I don't really know if he has extra blue mana floating. And they seem to have called outside help, outside assistance. Yeah, and there we see somebody from outside the game helping out, explaining how it works. And I believe that it works the way that Felipe would want to, because you can't, first of all, you can't so bound with a creature from your opponent. It has to be you have to control both creatures. And as long as they are so bound, you get to activate the ability and make infinite mana. Oh, I'm actually mistaken here. Soulbound says you may pair this creature with another unpaired creature when either enters the battlefield. They remain paired for as long as you control both of them. Importantly, it doesn't say the word target at any point. And then as long as Galvanic Alchemist is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has the ability to untap. Yeah, so you can actually soulbound with your opponent's creatures. That's a very interesting interaction. I have never seen this happen before. Today I learned. And that's why I love seeing these off meta decks. I mean, I guess White Winnie is not really off meta, but I really enjoy seeing these interactions show up in like live games, especially. And right now, I believe Felipe is trying to decide what he can do. Oh, they still seem to be arguing the situation. Well, we'll be waiting here until that situation is solved, and then we can move on with what I believe would be a win for Felipe. So I don't really know if they were arguing if it would work or not, or if maybe is just casting the lead the Stampede to try and get more resources, maybe try to find that Orochi leaf collar. And there's the Orochi leaf collar, actually two of them, very first cards. Yeah, lead the Stampede draws him 5 cards. And if he still has that Galvanic Alchemist in hand, that should just be the game. This Walls combo deck is very resilient. Even on a mulligan to 4. So tapping both Overgrown Battlements, which should be a total of 8 mana. Maybe not. Plays a Ceruli, plays an Orochi Leaf Caller. Crashing Drawbridge. And yeah, it seems we just passed the turn back to João for some reason. I didn't quite understand that part. Maybe just trying to put some blockers in place. That should work, right? Because Core Sky Fisher is only 4 power here, rather. And João just swinging out. And yeah, we see a wrap up there. That was impressive. I wasn't expecting the game to end that way, but I guess Felipe didn't have another payoff that he could use for the infinite mana there, so maybe the Galvanic Alchemist wasn't good enough. But we are going to see White Winnie take down here. So João Gomes takes the game down 2-1, and they were in extra turns there because our time had already run out. I'll be going down to the field to scout for the next match, and I'll come back here in just a moment. All right, welcome back to round number two. We are now going to be watching one of the spicy decks that I really wanted to see going here. And we are going to be seeing a match between João Gustavo playing Timur Ferries against Gabriel Ginja playing Altertron. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I have played a lot of Altertron in my life. I have not played a lot of Fate, and I have never played or played against or seen Timur Ferries. I have seen the lists that 5-old. I love João trying to show us the his complete hand with no lands there. If you have no idea what Timur Fairies means, it is a deck that is going to be playing Spellstutter Sprite and some other fairies alongside a bunch of cyclers, some counter magic, some lightning bolts, and Masked Vandals being the most important piece to tie the puzzle together. And Masked Vandal, actually pretty good if you were playing a bunch of cyclers such as Generous Ant, maybe some Oliphants and things of the like. Because if you're able to ninjutsu a Masked Vandal back and hit one of your opponent's pieces, that's pretty strong. Now, It does come with the fact that you're going to be playing a 3-color mana base on a tempo deck, so that might not be the best. We see a Snowland there for starters. It might be playing Scred in the list as well if you're playing with Snowlands. That is the blue-green land. Gabriel starting off on a piece of Tron land and a Candy Trail. Snow-covered island comes down and a passing of the turn. Classic holding up counterspell or a spell stutter sprite. On Gabriel's side, we can see a power plant and we can see a tower. Chromatic Star gets immediately tagged by a spell stutter sprite. João one taps. This is great. I'm enjoying this very much. This doesn't seem like the best sort of match for Altertron, but maybe Altertron can surprise us. Okay, there's a cycle for the Generous Ant. Snow-covered forest coming down. Let's see if there is a Masked Vandal to tag that Candy Trail. Swings for one. Ooh, is there a ninjutsu coming? There definitely is. Ninja of the Deep Hours comes down. No, don't put that Spellstutter Sprite in your graveyard. João, get the Spellstutter Sprite off of your graveyard. Okay, I might actually have to intervene here. Hang on. Okay, alright. I didn't have to intervene. We got there eventually. He picked his Spellstutter Sprite back. So, Gabriel now has a chance to actually deploy something, and that is a pretty good one. Mere Retriever able to block the Ninja of the Deep Hours and not only deny a card, but get back the Chromatic Star that was countered previously. Another snow-covered island there. There's the Masked Vandal, exiling the Ant and permanently exiling the Mere Retriever. That is absolutely devastating. So, Ninja of the Deep Powers connects for 2 more damage, draws another card. Absolutely crazy. So, Masked Vandal, importantly, a shapeshifter, meaning, or a changeling rather, meaning that it is a creature that is all types. So, it does count for Spell Stutter Sprite shenanigans here. There's a Brainstorm. Let's see what that Brainstorm does. Lauren reveals to shuffle and clear that Brainstorm. I would imagine there is going to be a Volatile Fjord coming, and there is. There is another swing and another ninjutsu for another Ninja of the Deep Hours, dropping Gabriel down to 15. He had gone up to 18 previously off of a cracked candy trail. And that's gonna be the game. Gabriel swiftly concedes to the pair of ninjas of the deep power and Masked Vandal, especially knowing that the Masked Vandals are, or the Masked Vandal is coming back later on. That seems like a, I don't want to say unwinnable, but it does seem pretty bad for Gabriel here. We can now see João looking at a pair of Relic of Progenitors, a pair of Cast into the Fire, the fourth Masked Vandal in the sideboard, and a whole lot of blasts. I mean, he did come pre-sideboarded, so I don't really know how much more he's gonna want to change in his deck. Every time you're playing with fairies or another synergy deck like this one, you have to consider the cost of sideboarding out cards that are good. Or not good, but integral to your game plan, I should say. On the Ultratron side, I am probably expecting Gabriel to be playing with Scatter Shots, which are traditionally very good against Fae. Maybe he wants to consider bringing in his own blasts if he is playing them, but again, it is going to depend on a few things. First of all, Ultratron has never been the most reliable at generating consistent colored mana. So, yeah, and I do see a red blast in Gabriel's sideboard there. All right. Players are now shuffling, getting ready for game number 2. Temur Fairies is definitely one of the decks of all time. That is a very interesting innovation. And definitely a deck that takes full advantage of the cycle creatures from Lord of the Rings. Not only to have a stable mana base, but to be able to use Masked Vandal effectively, a creature that is definitely very good in the current metagame. Excellent against all the artifact mana bases, excellent against enchantments like Journey to Nowhere, and obviously good against Graveyard Hate too, but your deck doesn't really care that much about that. All right, let's get to it. I believe both players are going to be on a mulligan to 6 here. Ultratron, definitely a deck that got much better with the London mulligan, as it is a deck that wants to have the selection of a full 7 before sending irrelevant cards to the bottom. All right, João sends his 7th card away. Gabriel seems to be doing the same. And Gabriel is actually going to go down to 5. Never a good place where you are when you are faced with a pressure-heavy deck like Fairies. And if you are an Ultratron player, or if you have been an Ultratron player, you would probably know that playing against blue Fairies is much harder than playing against something like blue-red or blue-black Fairies, because the removal spells aren't very good against you, and they usually come at a price of slower mana in the form of tap lands or more searching for lands, and usually less pressure, whereas Mono Blue Fairies is just extremely quick and extremely focused. This is a deck that is diluted between three colors, not only two, but it is also a deck that has Masked Vandal again, and Masked Vandal is very bad for you in many aspects. So let's see what Gabriel can cobble together here. That was just a Candy Trail, and I believe that was a one top, one bottom. And that just seems to be a... Is that a Highland Forest? Wow, so the Timur Fairies deck has space to be playing off-color dual lands. That is very interesting. And Gabriel might be on a single land here. We see a turn 2 cast into the fire, immediately hitting the Candy Trail. Okay, there's another second land. Another second land. A second land, I should say. Okay, Chromatic Star sacrifice for a draw, and there is a Mere Retriever. So Gabriel playing off of a mine and a tower, just missing a power plant. There might actually be a third land there just off camera that we can't see just yet. Relic of Progenitus. Very good at stopping the combo. Not great at overall pressure. And again, you really need pressure in this matchup. Oh yeah, we see the Mere Retriever getting snarky and coming in for a ping. There's the altar of Ashnod, or Ashnod's altar, right? So Ashnod's altar. Gabriel now only really needs another Mere Retriever and a payoff. And again, Masked Vandal, very good here, but João doesn't have any sort of creatures in the graveyard yet, so the Masked Vandal does not get to be an exile effect. There's another land, an untapping of that relic. Of course, the relic stops the Ashnod's altar combo as long as it's in play. But I would imagine that Gabriel is going to have outs to that. Ooh, there's the Masked Vandal. But there's nothing in graveyard. Yeah, that was just a naked Masked Vandal. No exile attached. And we are also seeing a little bit of a Nambo here, right? Because the Relic of Progenitus, if you are interested in popping it, is going to exile your own graveyard as well. So missing that chance to exile something is not great. Seems like Gabriel is going after an expedition map, which will most definitely complete Tron for them. And it does seem like our camera is getting a little bit off kilter. I'm gonna go there to make sure it goes back to where we can actually see most of what is happening at the game, and we can continue. Oh, there's a pop of the relic. So Gabriel was definitely threatening to combo. Ooh, there's another mirror. Oh, I gotta wait now because I want to see how this ends. We might be going to a game 3 here. Masked Vandal gets in, trades with the Mere Kinsmith. All right, I'm gonna go reorganize my camera, and I'll be right back in just a second. All right, in the interest of continuing with the narration, I fixed the camera a little bit, enough for us to see what is happening a little better. I'll fix it properly for the next round, as I didn't want to disturb the players too much. We see that Gabriel has been able to land a Packdoll Terror. And there's also a Fairy Seer on the other side, applying some pressure. Very pretty Ponder in Joan's graveyard. And Packdoll Terror coming in. Joan will be taking 3. But this game seems to be slipping away from his grasp. Swing for 2, no blocks, just 2 damage. This is a race that Packdoll Terror is very happy with, because it is going to be not only hitting for 3, but it is also going to be just attacking with the drain effect as well. Now we see one of the other reasons to play this deck, which is you get to play Writhing Chrysalis, one of the most balanced creatures released in the past few years in Pauper. Definitely a monster of an attacker and a blocker, very good at gumming up the board. Not exactly great here, because it is just another beater. So, Eldrazi's pawn gets sacrificed to cast a Spellstutter Sprite, which counters a Golden Foundry because, again, of the Masked Vandal counting as a fairy. Masked Vandal, Spellstutter Sprite, and Writhing Chrysalis, best friends forever. What a pile of cards. Gabriel takes a draw. Makes some mana. There's another Chromatic Star. Drains a point of life. Two mana left. One mana left. Sacrificing the star. Maybe not. Okay, just cycling the star. Probably making a black mana here. Another Candy Trail. Another drain going to be happening here. And a sacrificing of the Candy Trail, gaining 3 life, drawing another card. And without a steady source of card advantage from João's side, it is very possible that he's just going to die over the course of a few turns to the drain from this Packdoll Terror. Another Golem Foundry gets met with a SpongeBob counterspell. That is... João's deck is not only amazing, but it is also a work of art with all these variations. Oh, that's another... That the counterspell is met with a Red Blast, and the Red Blast is met with another counterspell. There's the Masked Vandal. Okay. Masked Vandal attacks into the Packdoll Terror. It blocks and then gets finished off by a Lightning Bolt, which is definitely bad news for... Oh, rather, Packdoll Terror attacks into Masked Vandal and gets met with the Lightning Bolt. And there is an Ninjutsu on the Spellstutter Sprite, and that is the source of card advantage that we have mentioned before. So now is definitely a situation where if Gabriel doesn't have a good recover turn right now, the game can easily spiral out of control. João is just going to swing again. 5 damage going to be coming through. Taking another draw. And again, let's remember, this is a deck that plays Lightning Bolts. So being at 6 life is actually a pretty big problem here. Also, that sneaky Eldrazi spawn that's left from the Chrysalis could be the final 6 point of damage next turn if Gabriel doesn't have anything that he gets to do. Urza's Tower taps for 3. Expedition map comes down. And I don't really know what Gabriel is looking for here. I guess Conduit Pylons helps because it's at least a Surveil, while still being another source of colored mana. And that is the end of the game. So João definitely gets to wrap it up here with his Teamer Fate, 2 games to 0 against Altertron. I'll be down there reorganizing the camera and scouting for the next match, and I'll be back here in a jiff to show you guys the next round, the third and penultimate round of today. Don't go anywhere. See you guys soon. Alright everyone, welcome back to round number 4, or round number 3, sorry. This is going to be the penultimate round of today, and I chose this matchup specifically for you guys because I wanted to show at least one different deck, and all my other choices meant that I would have to re-show a player today. So we here have the 1-1 bracket. We have Bruno Lima playing White Winnie, but it is going to be a different version from White Winnie, from the other one that I already played or showed you guys today. And on the other side, we have Renan Adolfo playing Hot Dogs. And Renan talked with me before the rounds, or before the tournament started, that he actually is coming back into Pauper, and he just played with the deck that he had, which was an old version of Hot Dogs, I should say. So we are going to be seeing some things like Madcap Skills and Gitu Lava Runner, cards that we haven't really seen played in a while. And we are going to see how that version of Hot Dogs is going to fare against an updated version of White Winnie. So a Chrome Crusader to start off, which will be making a 1-1 here. And that is a 4-1 Chrome Crusader attacking alongside a 1-1 red warrior token. That's a pretty aggressive start, especially on the play, but Bruno does have a Lunarch Veteran to gain him some of the life back that he is going to be losing. Ooh, immediate Thraben Charm removing the Chrome Crusader is going to be big game here. Extremely important for Bruno to remove it now. So that was a pretty clear 2-for-1, but he did deal a respectable 4 points of damage off of that Madcap Skills. And if you have been following along with my recent Kyun Fiend videos, you are going to see that this is a version of Hot Dogs that is not playing any sort of fast mana. It is just playing more threats and more spells, and trying to go a little bit slower than the more aggressive all-in versions. So Henna going to be attacking for 1, play as another land drop. And there's a Gitu Lava Runner, and another Gitu Lava Runner. Pardon me. Important to know that these Gitu are not going to have haste, as there are no spells in the graveyard, but Henna is going to suspend a Rift Bolt, another card that maybe we haven't seen in a while. Bruno, third land and just a passing of the turn. 3 mana in a White Winnie deck could represent many things. It is, in this case, just going to represent Prismatic Strength. And important to remember that Warrior token is not the correct one. That is a construct from Brothers War. The Warrior token is a 1-1 red creature. Core Skyfisher is going to come down alongside a Thraben Inspector, picking it back up. Gonna gain a couple life, make a clue, and more importantly, put a 2-3 body to protect the ground. And the air in this case as well. Lightning Bolt going to be trying to take out the Core Skyfisher, but Prismatic Strands is going to have something to say about that. And unfortunately here, I think that this game is slipping out from Henan's grasp. Hot Dog's very good at closing out games fast, but in the face of a turn 2 Thraben Charm and the Lunarch Veteran, he is definitely going to be the underdog moving forward here. If that Akroon Crusader stayed around, it could have been very difficult for the mono white deck to deal with a 4-power attacker that has evasion and is frequently bringing out more friends alongside it. So Bruno going to attack with the Skyfisher. Second main phase going to be web slinging the Spider-Man. A 3-3 is pretty good at blocking in the ground and also pretty good at pressuring the opponent's life total. And we can see that even after the initial onslaught, Bruno is at 17 life. And there will certainly be more prismatic strands to come here. Thraben Inspector number 2 coming down. That Rift Bolt's gonna come off Suspend, targeting the core Skyfisher. And that seems to be just a passing of the turn, maybe? Ooh, it's a Faithless Looting. Interesting. An interesting addition to this deck. So this is a version of Hot Dogs that doesn't seem to be playing Satyr Hoplite. Ooh, there's a Fling being discarded. That's an interesting one to keep our eyes on. And a Mountain. So these Gitu Lava Runners are now turned on. Lightning Bolt on Spider-Man. And swing for 4. All in all, that was a pretty good turn for Hina. Let's see if Hot Dogs can keep up, but it does seem like he only has a single card left in hand. Interesting to see him not attack with a Warrior. I would imagine that trading with that Lunarch Veteran would be very good for him. Rafine's Informant coming down, gonna get a counter, discard a Battle Screech, gain a life. And there's a Thraben Inspector, gain another life, get another token, and I would imagine there's gonna be a Battle Screech coming right now. And there certainly is. And there we see the 2 bird tokens. So an attack with the Gitu Lava Runners and the Warrior token. Bird is gonna get in the front of the Warrior to trade. And Bruno is going to be taking 4 points of damage again. Let's see what Hena has for a follow-up. It seems like it's a post-combat Madcap skills. That seems like an odd choice. Maybe a little worried about playing that pre-combat and then getting double blocked. Eagles of the North going to be cycled. I imagine we are going to see a idyllic Grange here, and we do. Counter is going to go on. The Rafines, it seems. Going to attempt to increase the pressure with a single creature rather than go wide. Interesting choice there, because that Rafines now is completely open to getting lightning bolted. Whereas maybe putting the counter on a Thraben would allow it to block one of the Gitu Lava Runners better. Ooh, that's an all-out attack. That smells like a Prismatic Strands on the crackback to me. Spider-Man comes back, picks up a Thraben. Inspector comes back, makes another token. Pardon me, that wasn't... Oh no, it was a Novice and a Thraben. So, not a Prismatic Strands on the attack back, but definitely lots of creatures coming down. 4 creatures coming down means 4 points of life, which is going to very strongly put the White Weenie player here on the offensive, not on the offensive, but on the seat of the game. Hot Dog's very good at playing offensive, but not very good at playing defensive. So this is definitely a situation where I imagine that our Hot Dogs player is going to have a hard time here. So that was just a swing from the Gitu that has Menace. Ooh, that's a double block on the Gitu, but there is a Teamer Battle Rage. Now, this is not going to be a lethal attack by any means, but it is going to trample for quite a bit. So I would imagine that both of those are going to die, and there is going to be 4 points of damage coming through. 6 points of damage coming through. Ah, yes, because now there is the extra 1 point of damage from the Gitu Lava Runner's innate ability. But there is another Battle Screech for 2 more points of life and 2 more birds, followed by yet another 2. So, Bruno took 6 points of damage, immediately gained 6 points of damage, 6 points of life back. And there is an attack for 5, I believe. Birds galore. Yeah, Henna down to 5 life. With White Weenie still at 16, it would take a miracle to be able to get out of this. Let's see what he can accomplish. That's a full swing, and there are chump blocks going both ways. I imagine this is another Battle Rage, sure, but that is not going to be enough, I feel like. Spider-Man and the bird means it's 4 life, so 2 more points of damage get through. And yeah, there's the handshake, so that is White Weenie 1 game up on Hot Dogs. Let's see if Hot Dogs can actually come back from that in game number 2. Now, when it comes from to the sideboards, I was checking what is White Winnie usually playing, and I definitely feel like this is a situation where the sideboard, if there is any to be added here, is going to involve having more pieces of interaction, kind of like what we saw in round number 1, where White Winnie was playing against walls. So Journey to Nowheres and extra Thraben Charms, if there are any things of that like, are probably the ones that we are going to be looking at adding here. And when it comes to hot dogs, I honestly do not know what sideboard Hino has, because as he himself said, this is an older deck. But Flaring Pain would definitely be very important here. And since he doesn't have any sort of fast mana, I guess he's just going to be looking for a hand that gets to go quick. Probably again with something similar to what we saw in game number 1, a Kroom Crusader plus Madcap skills or things of the like. Definitely feel like would be a good starting point here. Let's also get that clue token out of the board. That is not going to be there anymore. Oh, thank you very much, Bruno. Very kind of you. And we are off. Planes into Novice Inspector and immediately getting the clue token back. Forgotten Cave. Ooh, the Forgotten Cave played on turn 1 tapped, having no use, and then a turn 2 just a Crone Crusader, no second land drop. That is not really how you want to start the game. Novice Inspector after the attack, and immediate Spider-Man picking back up the Thraben Inspector. And gaining yet another life. Okay, that's the second land drop on turn number 3. Unfortunately, a little slow, but let's see if maybe he can recover. That's a Kion Fiend. Passing the turn. Third Plains in a row. And an immediate Journey to Nowhere on the Kion Fiend. Yeah, that just stays exiled. I don't imagine it's going to be coming back. Hot Dogs not notorious for playing a lot of enchantment interaction. Swing for 3 with Spider-Man, just going to be taking 3. Hina taking his draw. Lightning Bolt on Spider-Man. Is there an enchantment to go on that Akron Crusader? Bruno is going to have to read that card, and I would as well, because I do not know what that is. I believe that is the 1-mana Salamander that whenever it attacks, it deals a point of damage to the defending player. And the only reason I might know what it is because I played a whole lot of Brawl when it first came out on MTG Arena, and that was definitely a card that a lot of the red decks played, because when your deck is comprised of exclusively aggressive red creatures that are one-offs, you sometimes need to scrap the barrel. Bruno going to be Spider-Manning yet again, or web-slinging, picking up his Inspector after attacking with it and playing the Choco Mog, first main phase. There's another Lightning Bolt on the Choco Mog. That's a good hit. That should hold the tide a little bit. Rift Bolt suspended again, but as we can see, Hot Dogs seems to be losing steam super quick. And when you're losing steam very quick playing this deck, you don't tend to last very long, unfortunately. Inspector comes back yet again. Rift Bolt targets the... I couldn't really see what that was because of the glare. Kyun Fiend comes down. If there is one creature that can save Hena here, it is going to be Kyun Fiend. Immediately hit with the Thraben Charm, dealing 4 damage because of the 2 creatures in play. And that's just a passing of the turn. So Bruno might be a little flush with pieces of interaction or protection and not really a whole lot to do in the aggression department. Rift Bolt number 2 suspended, and Rift Bolt number 3 suspended. Alright, so that's a whole lot of burn that unfortunately can't really go face. Because if it goes face, it is going to be mitigated very quickly by that by that Lunar Veteran, I should say. Ooh, and Lunar Veteran number 2 probably means the Rift Bolts are gonna have a home. Bruno passing the turn back. Oh, and yep, there is the Prismatic Strands immediately negating those 2 Rift Bolts, and that should be the game here. Now, I don't really know how Bruno worded his usage of the Prismatic Strands, but there was an interesting line there where Hena could have, because if it was in the upkeep in response to the suspend triggers, Hena could have used them to target his own Acron Crusader. They wouldn't be dealing any damage because of the Prismatic Strands, and you would be getting a pair of 1/1s for your trouble. Now, keep in mind, it is still very bad for Hena, but at the very least, he would have gotten something out of it. So that was just a core Skyfisher, picking up Inspector, replay, get a clue, and a passing of the turn yet again. And it seems like Hina just drew his card, looked at the board state, and just passed the turn right back. Now I imagine we are getting very close to a knockout scenario. That is just going to be 6 mana for a hard cast Eagles of the North, +1/+0 and initiative to all those creatures. Not initiative, first strike, my bad. Initiative is a whole other mechanic. So 2 points of life are going to be gained. And that is just going to be maybe a swing with everything. So that should be 9 points of damage coming in. It is not lethal, but it's very close to it with Hina being at 11 life. Players seem to be talking about something, and apparently Hina chose no blocks. Straight 9 damage coming through, down to 2. But with Bruno at 32, I don't think there's a draw in the Kyun Fiend deck that would be able to get through. And there's the handshake and the concession. So White Weenie handily takes down Hot Dogs in this situation, and Hina is showing his hand of all combat tricks that he didn't really get a chance to deploy, which, yes, is unfortunate, but when you're playing against a deck that has some removals and some prismatic strands, things tend to get out of hand very quickly. Congratulations to Bruno, and I'll be going down to the floor to check out and see what the final match is going to be. And if possible, I'll bring you at least maybe a game 3 of some other table. We currently have 20 more minutes in this round, so we'll see how things go. Don't go anywhere. All right, and welcome back to the final round of today. Finally, let's go watch João Gustavo with his Timor Ferries list 3-0 today, undefeated, playing against Felipe dos Santos on Walls Combo. We watched both of these players before. We watched Felipe playing against White Winnie on the first round, which he lost, but made a pretty solid recovery, coming back to 2-1, and here at the final table on the final round. I would believe that this is a matchup where Timor Ferries is favored, if nothing because it has counter magic and has lots of removal. However, getting through to actually win the game is not going to be very easy here, especially if you are counting on ninjas. And again, the Masked Vandals in the main deck are not going to be helping a whole lot. But we get to see how it goes. And I gotta say, watching this deck play, the Timor Ferries, it kind of makes me want to try it online too. I wasn't super excited on this list when I first saw it, but João seems to think that it's pretty good, so let's see if it is. All right, Felipe is starting us off. Forest into Ceruli Caretaker. João's gonna go Island into just a passing of the turn. Let's see how fast Felipe gets to go here. Turn 2, Winding Way. Is there going to be a Spell Pierce from the Fairies deck? Doesn't seem like there will be. So that is going to be the full 4. Shield Wall Sentinel. X-Bane Guardian. I believe there was also a Ceruli. And Felipe just discarding a Forest. Lots of creatures in that Walls Combo player's deck. Or hand, actually. Let's see what João searched up. I didn't get a great look. So that's just going to be a Brainstorm off of that island. That's another island. Is it going to be a Fairy Seer? It is a Fairy Seer. All right. So Fairy Seer going to be helping clear that Brainstorm. Seems like it is one top, one bottom. I believe I saw a Volatile Fjord there. Fjord, very important in this matchup because you really want access to your red mana so you can interact with the Walls combo. And João knows what he's playing against, so if we didn't see him try to mulligan that hand or keep a more interactive hand, or an earlier interactive hand, it means that likely he is flushed with interaction, just needing a little bit of extra time to be able to deploy. Felipe going to be playing an X-Bane, tapping it with Ceruli to play another Ceruli. So if there is a Ninja here, the Ninja gets to connect. That is just a Lorien revealed getting cycled. Getting the Volatile Fjord that he knows was on top. Oh, okay, so João cycled that on the upkeep to get the card that he knew was on top. And there's a Moon Circuit Hacker connecting for 2. Drawing João an extra card. Is there a red mana into a lightning bolt? There is not. Are we gonna see just a combo kill on turn 4? That's yet another land drop. Nice to have, but not overly important in the Wolves combo deck. You really want your first 2 lands, but after that they are more of a luxury. And sometimes an actual impediment. Felipe currently with access to 8 mana, which is quite a bit. Let's see if there is something that he gets to do with all that mana. Transmuting a Drift of Phantasms for a Freed from the Rio immediately. And it seems like he has enough mana, yeah, because he tapped a forest to be able to leave up an extra blue from the X-Bane Guardian, enchanting the X-Bane, so he does have infinite mana. Let's see if he has a payoff. Demonstrating the loop. So we are just looking for the... Yep, there it is. There's the secret door, and we are done here. Wow. So João unfortunately kept a hand that didn't interact at all and was just goldfished on turn 4 by walls. Maybe a bit of a missed opportunity to mulligan the hand there and try to get something else. That was a fast game. So let's check that sideboard again. That is a whole lot of blasts, which are not necessarily great. I do believe that there are a pair of Serene Hearts, which is a decent card against the combo, but blasts would likely just be better as they can also hit other parts of the combo and not only the freed from the Rio. All right, let's go into round number 2 and or game number 2. Let's see if João can recover. Being on the play now is definitely going to be good for him. And let's see if he gets to keep a hand that is more interactive than the previous one. And seems like Felipe has a hand that has a lot of the pieces that he would like to have, but not enough lands. And this is a deck that, again, as I said, you really do need your first lands to get off of the floor with your mana coming from your creatures later on. So not really able to keep one land hands a lot of the time. Sometimes Quirion Ranger does help mitigate that quite a bit, but especially in a matchup where the opponent is going to be using things like removal spells and spell stutter sprites and whatnot, you really don't want to be tripping over your first few land drops. All right, let's see if players are going to be keeping their 6-card hands. João seems to be okay with it, going to be sending one of his cards to the bottom. And so will Felipe. Great, let's see it. That's a Volatile Fjord. That's the land that you want to see turn 1. If you are João, I mean. Because that turns on your removals, and it means that you have the opportunity to interact more aggressively early on. Exactly. That's a Lightning Bolt on the Cerulli Caretaker, and that could very definitely slow down Felipe's start. Overgrown Battlement. And that's a Lorien revealed. Let's see if it's just going to be an island. It is an island and a passing of the turn, I imagine. So, very possible that we are looking at a spell stutter or a counter spell, or possibly both. So let's see what Felipe wants to do. Wall of Roots. João says okay, that's fine, gives the thumbs up. 2 mana, 3 mana. X-Bane Guardian. That is one that I would imagine, yeah, there's the SpongeBob counterspell. SpongeBob says no to that. No thank you. That is a very strong card. There's a Fairy Seer. Fairy Seer goes top with the Scries. Very strong. I do strongly believe that post-sideboard, the Temur Fairies is even more of a favorite than Game 1, because you no longer have your Masked Vandals that don't do anything, you have more pieces of interaction, and again, this game at least, João is on the play, which is a big difference. We're gonna see 5, 6 mana. Is this gonna be a Generous Ant? Yeah, there's the Generous Ant. João says okay to that. Food token comes in. Scrap paper food comes into play. Now, the Temur Fairies deck is definitely capable of scratting larger creatures, but a 7 toughness creature on turn 4 or 5 for João's case might be a bit too much. That might demand a double removal spell situation. Fairy Seer number 2 comes down. I believe João already knows what the top card of his library is because he kept it before. But it is possible that now that there is a huge Generous Ant, we are not going to be keeping those. Oh, seems like we are. Top, top. Top, top, and a passing of the turn. Yet another Ceruli. Maybe this is a bait? Oh, and it's just a passing of the turn. So, interesting to see Felipe not attack. I understand that likely he wants to do his best to stop a ninja from connecting. But seems like a ninja is gonna connect regardless. Let's see if Felipe gets to eat one of the fairies. Ninja connects, and fairy dies, yeah. So it takes a draw. And unfortunately, I do. Yeah, that's just a passing of the turn. Unfortunately, I do believe that João is at 4 lands. So no chance to rip a scred and round up those 7 points of damage to kill the Generous Ant. Another X-Bane Guardian. Seems like X-Bane Guardian resolves. João plays a Fairy Seer, Scry 2 again. Bottom, bottom very quickly. And we are seeing here the situation that I mentioned, where, yes, on one hand, the Temur Fairies has a lot of interaction, but on the other hand, that's a very big 5/7 with reach. Oliphant gets cycled, grabs a basic mountain. So maybe João is not gonna get comboed very fast, but he does need to remove the Generous Ant eventually, and then he also needs to close out the game. That ninja is not going to be connecting very much, and it actually makes me even consider if the ninjas should be in. Ooh, seems like Whiny Way just resolved. That is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 creatures. And again, one of those creatures is a Valakut Invoker. If that creature makes it into play, I believe the game is over because Felipe is going to have a lot of leftover mana that he can use to shoot down the creatures. That is an Overgrown Battlement, which is free. So that is 5. Ten mana. Gonna be using some dice to represent some things. Ooh, that's blue mana then. So transmuting the Drift of Phantasms. So if you're Felipe here, I think you're feeling very confident because you get to go for the combo, and then if the combo gets stopped, you get to just land your Valakut Invoker, and then the Invoker is just going to take over the game very fast. Okay, so seems like Drift of Phantasms is just transmuting into Freed from the Real. Freed from the Rio going to be sticking to X-Bane Guardian? And in response, there is a Red Blast countering that Freed from the Rio. Is there another piece of interaction here? Oh, that's a Mirror Shell Crab. Mirror Shell Crab counters the Red Blast. And I believe that might be game. Oh, it's a Serene Heart. So it seems like in response to the untap ability, there is a Serene Heart being put on the stack. And Felipe apparently has another Mirror Shell Crab, but I don't believe he has blue mana right now to do that. Yeah, so the Serene Heart resolves. And yep, hit for 5. And João takes the choice, which I believe to be correct, which is to just jump block with the Ninja. The Ninja is never connecting regardless. But now João knows that he has two problems here. He needs to not only answer the Generous Ant, which is actively killing him, but also needs to do something about the Valakut Invoker, which will, long-term, definitely end the game. Now, the Valakut Invoker can be answered by a single removal spell, but depending on how much mana is left, Valakut Invoker could just come down and do a lot of damage immediately. Like, shoot your Ninja for 3, shoot face for another 3. So, Ninja, Moon Circuit Hacker gets ninjutsu'd in, deals a couple points of damage, draws another card. Fairy Sphere comes back down, top. Alright, so the Temur Fairies list was able to resist the initial onslaught of walls. Can it continue to do so? And we know that Felipe has another Mirror Shell Crab in hand. Pardon me. And I know it might be hard to believe, but Mirror Shell Crab is just a big creature that you can cast. And one that is very annoying to kill. Orochi Leaf Caller. And there is the Valakut Invoker, yep. Let's see if the Invoker is going to resolve. If it does, that is very bad news, because both of those creatures are going to be dead. Oh, that resolved, and it was just a passing of the turn. No activation just yet. Ponder for João. So, by my math, I believe that Felipe has access to 17 mana, which is enough to activate Valakut Invoker twice on João's turn. And in fact, it is enough to just activate it twice face, and then do it twice more. Yeah, and João concedes, extends the handshake, and we have our winner of today's tournament. Felipe Santos finishes 3-1 with Walls Combo. Very well done by Felipe, very well done by João, honestly, as well, playing a off-meta list, but not getting all the way there. Mirror Shell Crab definitely being a strong piece of tech, but essentially Temur Fairies not able to generate enough card advantage to keep up with the Walls Combo build. And that was very interesting. I liked that quite a bit. Very well done by both of our players. All right, so I'm going to be wrapping this up now. I would like to thank you all if you watched it all the way here, be it online live or on YouTube later after I upload this. Again, I will try to do this as much as I can. It is a lot of fun. I really like coming down to the LGS and being able to chat with everybody and have a good time, even though it is very tiring and very difficult. I like it. It's fun. So I'm gonna plug my Patreon again. If you would like to help me out and check extra content, you can go to the Patreon and do that. And if not, it's fine, it's cool. You can just subscribe to the channel. I am trying to get to 500 before the end of the year, and we are actually getting pretty close to it. And that's gonna be it. Thank you for the excuse for me to dress up and get out of the house a little bit. I enjoy that very much so. And I hope you have a great day, a great evening. Take care of yourself. And again, be nice to yourself mostly, but to other people as well. You deserve it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.